Today I'd like to talk to you about filters. Filters are a great tool to use when you want to take a large set of data. So you may have hundreds or thousands of rows of data in a table, and you kind of just want to analyze pieces of that data kind of quickly. You would just use a filter, and what filter allows you to do is just select certain criteria, and it'll only display the criteria that you selected. So you could kind of narrow down that large group of data into like smaller pieces really quick. So let me show you how to do that. And there's a few tricks I use, actually in the real world at work that I wanted to show you that it's just kind of something to think about that maybe you could kind of use in your own day. So let's just first look at what is a filter and how do we apply it to our data. The first thing you could do is you could just highlight, say, these headings, come into the Home tab, into editing, and then just go to sort and filter and click filter. Now, this works most of the time, 90% of the time. I don't do this, A, because I'm probably neurotic, but B, because, let me show you what happens. If I deselect this, let's just say somewhere in row 4,000 out of 10,000 rows, there's an actual, somebody inserted a blank row. Now if I highlight this, the filter's only actually going to filter down to that blank. So I have like Joe Smith, Dave Jones, Carol Smith, and if I keep scrolling down, you can see there's an ABC company. So if I drop down to filter on company name, you notice that ABC company didn't show up because I had like a space. I had a space in row 42. So let me just undo. And this is what I always do. It just takes like an extra 2 seconds, but I am guaranteed that my whole range of data is selected when I filter it. So whether you think I'm neurotic or not, it just takes me an extra second and it just gives me that peace of mind. So I just select the whole range of data. So I just hold Shift End over, Shift End down. And I could see if I stop, if there's like a space, then I would just keep going, or I would kind of delete that space. But here I see I'm all the way at the end of the data. So here we go. Looks good to me. So once I'm definitely at the end, now I'd go to that Home tab and go to Sort Filter and then click Filter. So now if I scroll back up to the top, you can see these little drop down arrows. That is the filter that's applied to this data. So each column has its own filter. And just real quick, like, what is a filter? So let's just say I want to see the criteria of, let's call it Joe Smith. So I could just hit that drop down arrow in the company name and I see all the companies listed. Now granted, there's only 5 companies here, but let's just say there's 5,000 companies. You got to think in terms of massive data that, you'll probably, when you're actually at work, it's a little different from this sample that I've picked just to show you. So, even though it's simple what I'm doing now, this list can go down thousands of names. So you just got to keep that in mind. So if I just want to see Dave Jones, I would click the Dave Jones, and it would only show me Dave Jones. So real quick, if I want to see everything again, I would just click Select All. A couple other things to think about here is you have this search box, which is kind of cool. Like say I have Carol Smith and I have Joe Smith. So I just want to see the Smiths, right? I could just type Smith in the search box and it'll only show me anything that has a Smith. It could be anywhere, and it could be first, last name, in the middle. It doesn't matter. The 5 letters Smith appear in this company name. Then we can kind of get down a little bit further into this text filter. So here's where you have equals, does not equal, begins with, ends with. Here you get a little more specific. This is contains, which is kind of similar to the search box. Does not contain though. So if you want to see everything but Smith, you just type in Smith in the does not contain. And then it also has a custom filter. Now here's what gives you 2 criteria to use, and you'll have an and or situation. So let's just say you want to say this to begin with Carol. Right, so if I just say begin with Carol and does not end with Smith. So what I want here is like a name that company name that begins with Carol and does not end with Smith. So you can see I have a Carol Jones. So, that's just one way you can kind of get a little bit more creative on the filters. Again, I went back to select all. Then when you get down to say dollars or quantity, this is where you'll get into a number filter. So here's, as you see here, this is got several different, probably dozens of, unit price. So this is not something you just want to go through and click, like if say there was 100 different unit prices, it might be easier just to come to a number filter instead of trying to pick and choose which ones you want to see. Maybe you just want to go, less than 10, and it'll only show you unit prices that are less than 10. Or maybe you come again to the custom filter and it gives you that double option where you could say it's less than 10 or, greater than 50. And then it'll only show you things less than 10, greater than 50. For whatever reason you would need to see that, that's how you could do it. So let me just go back to select all. Another thing that's kind of neat about the filters is if you come down here, there's also something called top 10 or above average or below average. So if you just want to see what's above average, like say on ticket, like say invoice amount, it'll kind of show you what's above average. So if you just say above average, these are the above average. And top 10, it doesn't have to be 10, but let's just say you want to see what your top 5 tickets for the month are. So you can just pick top 5 items, and then these are your top 5. So these are the top 5 invoice dollars and who did them or whatnot. I remember back in the day, and I say that because it was probably about 10 years ago, I was using Excel, I think it was 2003. And, you'd come through and things that didn't make sense, and you'd come up to say like color fill. And so you'd highlight things like, okay, maybe I'll highlight things in yellow that I want to look at, or something doesn't really make sense, or whatever it is. Oops. And I remember I was working for somebody at the time. He goes, well, you can filter on a color, so you could pick all these colors, you could color code things, but you can't filter on a color. Well, thanks to Excel 2007 and beyond, now you can filter on a color. So that's just one thing I want to show you here, which is really useful. So if I come up to the filter, I could see up here where it says sort by color, filter by color. So say you've been highlighting things and yellow means something and orange means something and the green is something else, and you just at the end of the day you want to just, well, show me the yellow. Now I could filter on those colors, which is really, really useful. Another thing I like to do, let's just say I'm going through, all right, let me just get rid of these colors. So shift and down, and I'm just going to go back to no fill. Here's something I use a lot, which is kind of like a cool way to use a filter. Let's just say you're doing some kind of an analysis, and as you look at something and analyze something, you want it to disappear from the list, right? So say you're just fixing names, or you're just working on the ID numbers or the invoice numbers or something like that. So let's just say you are looking at, all right, we're going to just quickly look at, say, everything less than $10. And now, you look at this, you make the changes you have to make. So then you say, okay, I'm just going to highlight all of these invoice numbers, whatever, yellow. I've made the change. I've done whatever I had to do on these. And now I just want to start looking at, everything else. So what you could do, I'd come back here and just select all again. Instead of showing me those yellow ones, I'll just say show me everything, filter by no fill. And now I could start, doing different things. So I could just say, hey, between, 10 and 20. And now I could, I do what I have to do with them. Obviously it doesn't have to be a number filter like that, but you're going through this company, that company. All right, I've already looked at them. Now I'm going to come back here and I'll just select, $30. Well, what happens is if I just kind of go here and select them all, this invoice number is selected on only no fill, so they won't show up. So as you kind of work on different things, the ones that you highlighted like kind of disappear, or they're filtered out, if you will. So you just kind of keep on working on a less and less population. So let's just say I go filter numbers between greater than or equal to 20 and less than or equal to 100. You know, so now I'm just keep on. I just want to show you that, like, at the end of the day, you know, you keep going through, and now you can come here and do this again and say, okay, well, let's do between, and then we'll do 100 through 200. And then, you know, it just kind of keeps narrowing it down. So you could use the filters and filter by color and things like that to really kind of break that down. That's something that was much more difficult to do, and I think that covered everything. So before filter by color, it was just a kind of a chore to do that. You know, now I could just highlight everything one color, and then it just kind of, I could filter them out. And then at the end, when you're done with your filter, if you want to, like, say you have multiple filters on, so you don't have to go into each one and select them all, you could just kind of put your mouse somewhere into this heading, come back into home, drop down the sort and filter, and just go to this clear. So this actually is helpful when you have like a spreadsheet that has maybe 50 columns, and you know, you have like 5 different filters on, 10 different, and so instead of trying to figure out where the filters are, you could just clear the whole thing. And now that I'm done with this whole analysis, I would just come to this, you know, well, everything that I highlighted yellow, and go back to no fill. So that's just one other way I use filters. So let's just say I'm going to filter on Carol. And, you know, here I am, I'm entering some stuff, and I just make some changes, and I'm coming through, and I add another something, like say I add another row down here, and now this is going to be, let's just call this one, you know, Dave Smith. And I'm like, okay, that's, now it's not filtered on Carol anymore. What do I do? If I right click right on the cell that's filtered and I come to filter, I could at this point reapply that filter so that it'll just filter back on Carol without me having to go through, select them all, then just select Carol. It reapplies whatever filter I had. So that's another way it's really useful. And then again, if you right click, you could also go to filter and then just clear from that particular cell. So those are the ways that I use filter. So I hope this helps, and I hope you start using this in your everyday work life, because it is really useful. And the more you use it, the better you become at it, and the more uses you find. I hope this video really helped you out. And if it did help, please hit like and subscribe, because that really helps me out. Also, head on over to my website at expertofficetraining.com. And you could see a lot more training videos, and also sign up for my email newsletter and get a free video course delivered right into your inbox. Again, it's expertofficetraining.com, or just click the link below.